Hi guys, it's Kelly here, and I am back with another video for Create a Smile. Today we are going to be using the Comfy set and the Winter Fun set. So it is snowing here in Ohio, and I am getting ready to go to CHA, which is in Southern California. So I kept thinking about, like, it's going to be summer for me in just a few days, and that's how this card kind of came together. So I wanted to do a scene card, and I just took copy paper and tore it in half so I would have a jagged edge. And I am going to turn it into a mask by applying Tombow Mono multi-glue to the edge, and I smear it all the way out to the edge with my finger. And the reason I use this glue is because it is repositionable after it dries. So permanent if you put it down wet, repositionable after if you put it down after it dries. Here I'm just trying to get my placement for what I want to do. And I'm going to go ahead and stamp out all my images in Memento Tuxedo black ink because I'll be coloring with Copic at some point. So I'm going to get my trees down, and then I wanted to have my hammock hanging there, but one tree is bigger than the other, so I needed to stamp my hammock in a way that it looked like one tree would be further back. So I was just trying to get that angle right. And yeah, that's pretty much all the black outline stamping we're going to be doing. I have some masks that I created for these, the hammock and the two trees. I'm going to go ahead and put those down. They will stay in place for all of the inking. It's just going to, I'm going to be using distress inks to create a background, and that's just going to keep those pieces safe and white so I can go back in later and do the Copic coloring. The jagged piece, I'm going to do the sky first and then the sand second. So I'm going to put that down, and that's going to block where the sand is. And I used lots of different colors of distress ink to do this. And you'll see when I start rubbing it on, those tree masks don't really want to stay in. And that happens a lot to me when I have a mask that has like a really pointy edge. I pull it up a lot. So in this case, I found that it was easier for me to go up from the bottom. They seem to pull less if I did that. So anyway, like I said earlier, so I was thinking about, dreaming of summer. I'm going to be heading into some warm weather, even if it's just for a couple of days. I'm very grateful because I am a freeze baby. So me and winter don't get along. But, even thinking about people like my friend Barb, who lives in Minnesota. So it's like, it's already snowed crazy there this year. It took us a little while longer here to actually get into winter. I'm using Salty Ocean distress ink, and I'm putting that all over everything because I just really love that bright blue color, and I wanted it to be prevalent throughout the whole project. I'm using the Blueprint Sketch ink as my darkest water, quote unquote. So because when you look at it from the bottom, it's going to appear to be water. If you look at it from the top, it's going to appear to be the sky. And I toyed around with doing a horizon line, but I felt like that would just look weird. I felt like it would break up the design. So I just decided to leave it as is. And I think it came out okay. I think that you get the visual effect I was going for. I didn't want the sky to be boring. I wanted it to be a little bit more interesting, so I opted to throw in some purples using the Wilted Violet, which is one of the distress inks for 2015, and then some Dusty Concord. Yes, they're both purple, but one is more gray than the other. And then last, I'm using some Chip Sapphire, which is just a super pretty navy color if you don't own it. I own all of them because I have full set syndrome, so I have to own all of them. I'm currently waiting for Candied Apple, which was the last release for 2015, to arrive in my mailbox. Here I'm going to go ahead and flip the mask so I can do the sand portion. So now I'm using that top piece, and we're going to do the browns. The Brush Corduroy is my favorite for sand. It's just a really warm brown color, and I feel like that's always good for the beach. And I'm not being too terribly careful with my blending here, just because for the sand, it gives it some texture if it's not a completely smooth blend, and I'm okay with that because where the water would come in, the color wouldn't be as dark anyway. And then the vintage photo, because as the water would come in, it would be darker where like the water had already wet the sand. And then how I'm going to get the look of actual like the spray or the foam. Somebody use a stiff bristled brush. I'm just going to put a little bit of water on there, and I'm not going to use a ton because I'm not working on watercolor paper. I just want it to, what's the word I'm looking for? I want to have varying depths of white. So I needed to kind of water it down a little bit so that it wouldn't be so prevalent. It would give the look of the multi-dimensional look of how the foam actually looks. And then I'm going to go in on top of that with just the pure paint, the pure white acrylic paint, so that there's some pops of a really true white in there. And I've used that trick. I use that trick all summer long with a lot of beach cards. And then I'm just heat setting this. This is really, really important because we're going to do some heat embossing in the background. You need to make sure that your distressing background is completely dry before you do any embossing on top of it. So I'm going to pull up the masks. I'm going to put my embossing buddy down, and then I'm going to test it. I have done this way too many times and ruined way too many pieces by not taking this 10 seconds to do this extra step. So please do that. Don't try to emboss on a distressing background without testing it, because you could ruin your project. The sentiment that I wanted to use is from Winter Fun. And it says Dream of Summer. It's a line sentiment, but I wanted it to be stacked. I felt like that fit the design better. So I just use a piece of, you can use regular tape or washi. Here I used washi tape, and I cover up a portion of the sentiment and then ink it up, stamp it down. I clean it off, and then I use the tape to cover up the other portion of the sentiment, ink it up, and do it all over again. And this is a way that you can mask or get more out of your sentiment sets without having to cut them, because I know everybody says it's okay and they go back together. I just have a really hard time doing it. It's painful for me. So after that was done, I heat set the sentiment, and now I just picked out some snowflakes from that Winter Fun set. I'm just going to stamp them down, put the white embossing powder on, and heat set that so that I tried to put the bigger ones toward the top, but then I just heat set as I went. And yes, that increases the likelihood of my paper warping, but that's just my preferred method. You can stamp them, the glue will hold them. You can stamp them down and put the powder on and then just do them all at once. It's just not how I prefer to do it. So here I picked out some brown Copic markers to do the tree trunks, and then also to add in just a little bit of a shadow and texture to the ground underneath the trees in the hammock. I picked these because they match those distressed ink colors the best. They're very warm. They have like a golden undertone. And I am flicking from, the base of the layers, just to try to give them some fullness, some roundness, so they don't look like they're just flat tree trunks. I start with my lightest color, I move out to my darkest, and I'm using small flicking motions, only using the tip of the marker. And this is just going to give me a good blend, and I want to make sure that I don't go so high that I lose the highlight that separates each tree trunk section from the one that's before it. So yeah, I think they came out pretty good. I picked red for the hammock because I felt like it would catch the eye. I'm sure there's some other, like you probably could have done, like a bright purple or a pink that would have had the same effect, or even an orange and blue are complementary colors. But I just thought the red was really pretty with the blue and the green of the trees. So here I'm just using the same colors that I used for the tree to do just a little bit of shadows. Nothing, too crazy. You're just trying to ground your image. And then I'm going to add some dots in the same colors for that sandy texture. And you could do it all over. I don't think it's necessary. I think doing it just where your image is helps to draw your eye on the card, because it's not like there's a whole lot going on here. You know what I mean? It's a one layer card, well, one layer panel. Some people are finicky over what is a one layer card. It's a one layer panel. And then here I'm moving on to the red of the hammock, and I'm basically doing the same thing. I'm using small flicking motions. A hammock, because it's bent in, would be darker where it's folded at the base. So with each color, I am doing a line underneath that of the darkest colors and blending as I go up, and the lightest portion will be in the top center. After that, we're moving on to the green. Now, when I did the waves, I did get some of the white acrylic paint over the outline of that tree on the left. It didn't affect my Copic coloring, and I always outline all of my images, so this is not something that I was concerned about. Even if you're not a person who outlines all of your images, you could use black Copic multi-liner or gel pen or whatever just to fix up that portion, and you'd still be totally fine. I wanted to do my shading from the outside, or the inside out. So the darkest portion is going to be in the center. And again, this is just to, give it some kind of dimension and shape. I only showed you one tree, but I colored them both exactly the same way. And then I'll cap the whole thing off with a coat of the lightest color. And here's me. I'm going to be doing the just a little bit of the outlining. When I color with Copics, I outline all my black images, if that's what I've stamped them in. And it's just something, it doesn't take very long, and I feel like it makes the coloring pop. And in this case, I actually needed to do it because I had gotten paint over that one portion of my tree. Here I'm taking just some clear Wink of Stella, and I didn't want to coat the whole sky, but I wanted to do some dots. I also added some smaller dots with a white gel pen to fill in those snowflakes, and then also add some polka dots to that hammock. And again, this is just because it is a flat panel, and I just want it to be as interesting as possible. So adding little details like that can really help your card come together. This is just some blue craft foam. I'm going to use that to pop up my panel off of a white card base. And I use this with liquid glue. It doesn't give me any problems. I just make sure that I get the corners really well. I'm going to go ahead and put that down, and yeah, that's pretty much going to be the card. So I feel like when you look at it from the bottom, it does look like the water rolling in, at the ocean. And when you look at it from the top, it looks like snow falling out of the sky. So I would love to know what your opinion is. And, oh, this comfy set that I used is actually a last chance in the Create a Smile store. So if you want it, pick it up, because they're not going to be making it anymore. So thank you so much for joining me, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Bye.